a college student with a bright future.
He was a journalism and history major who planned to go to law school.
He had a huge social group. He was very well liked.
Is found murdered in the middle of town.
The wound was so deep, the blade of the knife nicked the spine.
Sending police hunting for an elusive killer.
This case was a true mystery, a true whodunit.
He was depicted as a promiscuous young man who could have been killed by anybody.
And when they catch him, it leaves everyone blindsided.
They did not want to believe this was true.
And that was pretty surprising.
When we figured out who did it, I refused to believe it.
Columbia, Missouri is best known as the home of the University of Missouri.
I think many people would consider us a college town. This is a city, small city with 30,000 students, coming in.
For the Columbia Police Department, a neighborhood of rowdy kids is usually as bad as it gets.
Mainly a lot of college-related crimes, such as the parties and alcohol offenses. Homicides in general were unheard of.
That all changes one afternoon in June 2004.
I received a call that someone had found a body in the East Campus area, and because I'm the East District Commander, I headed towards the scene.
Schwartz arrives to find a team of officers already securing the area.
The body was in between two apartments, lying face up, and he only had boxer shorts on. His throat had been slit, most probably with a knife. It was a very large and gaping wound. It was very deep. There's a few other abrasions on the upper body. So it was a very violent action, just a very violent crime.
I was a student in college, and seeing this in a place I knew really well was tough.
The forensics team processes the scene while police search the area carefully, but they can't locate a murder weapon or ID on the body.
We started talking with people in the area to see if anyone knew this particular person.
This was a part of town where everybody really knows everybody else. Everybody knows everybody else's business.
One onlooker thinks they recognize the dead young man.
The body was identified as Jesse Valencia. He was a young man attending the University of Missouri, and we found out that he lived in the neighborhood, block and a half from where we found his body.
The 23-year-old lived alone in an apartment just off campus. Police need to know if that's where the crime got its start.
We opened it up and started to look for any initial type evidence, trying to figure out who could have done this and for what reason.
The forensic team does a thorough sweep of the apartment, bagging Jesse's cell phone, cigarettes, and other items, while police canvass neighbors to see if they noticed anything suspicious the night before.
His neighbor admitted coming home drunk about 3 in the morning and going to bed. He was awakened by yelling that was going on next door. This neighbor actually pounded on the door and then went back to sleep.
The neighbor recalls that the shouting was late, almost 4 o'clock in the morning. Police are curious who was in the apartment with Jesse and what could they have been arguing about.
That obviously started to help us narrow down the time frame of when this may have occurred, but that's all we had to work with at that point.
There were no real clues as to who had murdered this young man.
A few hours into the investigation, another young man arrives at the scene in a flood of tears.
This guy named Jack Barry told investigators he was Jesse's former boyfriend who just lived a few blocks away. A friend had called Jack Barry saying that Jesse was dead.
If he had a relationship with Jesse Valencia, he was definitely a person the detectives wanted to talk to.
Jack agrees to come down to the station for routine questioning. But first, he helps detectives track down Jesse's family in Kentucky.
They called me on the phone, and a detective told me that Jesse had been killed, and I pretty much just took off running through the house and ran out my front door screaming. Just too much. Even when he was a little boy, Jesse never had trouble making friends. Everybody wanted to be around him because he was constantly smiling, laughing, and Jesse told me he was gay when he was 10 years old. He started crying, he got pretty emotional, and he said that he was afraid that I was gonna hate him. And I told him that there was nothing in the world that could make me hate him. After that, he seemed pretty comfortable with himself.
As a teen, Jesse's confidence bloomed.
Jesse loved to talk. He loved meeting new people, making new friends. When he was in high school, he wanted to try modeling. He did really well at it, and I always thought that he wouldn't go back to school, but a year from the date that he told us that he wanted to be a model, he said he wanted to be a lawyer. That's what he decided to do, and that's why he went to Missouri.
Linda said he was a journalism and history major who planned to go to law school.
Jesse Valencia was one of those larger-than-life characters. He had such a big personality. He had a lot of friends. He had a huge social group.
Now, detectives need to find out who cut Jesse's life short in such a horrific way. They start by asking Jack Barry about his relationship with Jesse.
Jack told them he and Jesse had just split up, and he was trying to make Jesse realize it's over. I need to move on. Jesse still loved Jack, so he was having a hard time letting go. But Jack was already starting to see someone else.
Was it a fight with a spurned lover that the neighbor had heard in the middle of the night?
It was possible Jack had some type of confrontation with Jesse that led to his death.
And when investigators asked Jack for an alibi, it turns out that he doesn't seem to have one.
His alibi was I was home sleeping alone. At that point, Jack Barry had become the primary suspect.
Coming up, detectives discover a secret romance
They had started a relationship very quickly.
that uncovers a killer's trail
A lie is the next best thing to a confession.
to a surprising culprit.
It was shocking on many levels.
Detectives in Columbia, Missouri are questioning a man who had recently split up with murdered college student Jesse Valencia.
Jack Barry wanted to end the relationship. He wasn't happy with the relationship any longer.
Jack paints a picture of a couple growing apart after 2 years of dating. But a piece of evidence found at Jesse's apartment makes detectives question his story.
The investigating detectives found Jesse's cell phone and the cell phone showed that Jesse had called Jack Berry at about 3:18 that night.
The neighbors had heard some type of argument from the victim's apartment, approximately the time frame of when this occurred. So that would be obviously suspicious.
But Jack insists he was nowhere near Jesse's apartment.
Jack said that he had already gone to bed that night and that he heard a knock on his door at 3:18 in the morning, and then he simultaneously got a phone call from Jesse's cell phone. It was routine that Jesse would use his cell phone as sort of a doorbell. Jack said he was tired and he really didn't feel like getting up and talking to his former boyfriend at 3:18 in the morning, so he didn't go to the door.
Jack says he rolled over and went back to sleep, but police aren't so sure and question him for hours.
Finally, Jack broke into tears, and he said he regretted that. He didn't go to the door because what happened might not have happened had he done that. His reaction was so genuine, and it was clear that Jack still had a lot of love and affection for Jesse.
And it's becoming clear to detectives that Jack didn't kill Jesse, but they press him to see if he might know who did.
Jack said that he had no clue as to what would have happened to him and why anyone would have killed him.
23-year-old Jesse Valencia, the MU student.
Police found Valencia's body on East Campus, throat slashed.
As the story of the murder hits the 11 o'clock news, it sends shockwaves through the city.
I would say this was probably one of the most gruesome killings in Columbia. We don't have very many murders here.
The murder of a gay young man just a week before the city's first Pride Fest horrifies the progressive college community.
For anyone who thinks that they can get away with something like this so heinous is just unthinkable. We know from past homicides that a majority of them are with people that they know. Anyone who had had contact with him, whether in a sexual relationship or a social relationship, the detectives wanted to talk to.
Police begin to make the rounds of Jesse's wide circle of friends, wondering if there's anyone in his life that might have harbored any kind of grudge. One name they hear over and over is Zev Feintuck, a student that Jesse had met 2 weeks earlier at a political rally.
Jesse's friends had said, oh, maybe it was this guy because he didn't seem quite normal. There was something that made him a little bit different from other people.
Several of Jesse's friends, they said that Zev wasn't comfortable in his own skin and that he had a lot of issues with being himself. There was some contention whether Zev and Jesse were having a romantic relationship. They were spending a lot of time together.
Rumors about the two young men had been swirling, and after Jesse was murdered, the gossip about Zev began to take a sinister tone.
Somebody saw someone matching his description, looking disheveled and crying, walking down the street the morning of the murder, and a car he was known to drive was seen in that area.
That's when the detectives started looking towards him and started talking with him and seeing what he had to say.
Detectives call Zev down to the station, but he denies that the rumors about him and Jesse are true.
Zev said they'd never had a sexual relationship, that they were friends. Then Zev would come over and hang out with him.
Police questioned Zev about where he was between 3 and 5 a.m.
His alibi was, I was home sleeping. He was a young man who still lived with his parents.
They subject Zev to a voice stress analysis test to see if he is telling the truth.
It showed untruthful, so deceitful. That did seem to be some evidence of guilt.
Detectives quickly follow up with a visit to his parents, but they confirm that their son was home all night.
Zev's parents had said that when Zev would leave, he would always go through the garage door to get to the car, and so it made a big racket. They would have awakened his parents, and they said there's no way that he would have left that night. It seemed like he did have an alibi.
With Zev Feintuch discounted as a suspect, detectives continue to piece together the last hours of Jesse Valencia's life.
The detectives were talking with several of the friends of Jesse Valencia to see where he was on the evening and early morning hours that this occurred.
Police learned that Jesse had gone to a party at a friend's house around 11 p.m. on the night he was killed.
Some friends of Jesse said that Friday night, Jesse was at a party with a young man named Ed McDevitt.
Ed McDevitt was somebody Jesse had just met. Ed was a chef in town. They had met just a couple of nights before and had started a relationship very quickly.
Jesse's friends tell police that the two men left the party together, heading in the direction of Jesse's house.
And that was around 3 o'clock in the morning on the last night of Jesse's life.
It appears as though Ed McDevitt might have been the last person to see Jesse alive.
And it was possible Ed McDevitt went home with Jesse and then killed him.
12 hours after finding Jesse Valencia's body, detectives track down 22-year-old Ed McDevitt and bring him down to the station.
Jesse had met Ed McDevitt 2 days before his death and invited Ed to come home with him on that Friday night, the last night of Jesse's life, so he became a suspect at that point.
But Ed claims that he and Jesse went their separate ways soon after they left the party.
And he was talking with Jesse on the phone at the time he was walking home on the last night of Jesse's life.
Ed says that his roommate was up when he arrived home and invites detectives over to talk to him themselves.
There's nothing found when they search his home, and everything Ed McDevitt told the officers they could verify by looking at his cell phone records, by talking to his roommate, and at that point, investigators let him go.
Police hope the DNA results pending at the lab will help them link one of their suspects to Jesse's murder. Desperate for answers, Jesse's mom grows more despondent, recalling an eerie premonition Jesse had years ago.
From the time Jesse was 7 years old, he had told me that he was going to die at a young age. He said, "I'm going to die at a young age, and I love all of you, and I always will love you, but I'll be okay." He would always end it with, "I'll be okay." And of course I got emotional and upset over it, but he said, "We've got to make the most of what time I'm here."
A day after Jesse's murder, detectives receive the autopsy report and study it closely for clues.
The medical examiner concluded that Jesse had been murdered in the area of 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. The cut to his neck was the only knife wound, and it was the cause of death. And it was so deep, the blade of the knife had also nicked the spine.
The lack of defense wounds suggests that Jesse had been taken by surprise.
The most mysterious thing was that across his breastbone there were bruises, and in the middle of his back between his shoulder blade there were bruises.
The evidence suggests that Jesse was easily overpowered in the vicious attack. Investigators hope that additional lab work will reveal even more and point to a killer.
There were fingernail scrapings collected during the autopsy, and also some hairs were found on his chest, and that was sent to the crime lab for analysis.
Until the crime lab turns up DNA, police have no choice but to move on to their next lead.
A lot of Jesse's friends were being brought in, they were giving evidence, they were helping out with information.
One of those friends is a fellow student named Andy.
Andy Schermerhorn was a young man who had what they called a friends with benefits arrangement with Jesse.
Andy was out of town the night Jesse was killed. But the day after the murder, he comes forward to share a shocking story.
Andy Schermerhorn told the investigating detectives that Jesse was having sex with a Columbia police officer.
He was having a relationship with an officer. I was surprised.
Andy nervously reveals an encounter 3 weeks prior at Jesse's apartment.
Andy Schermerhorn said that on May 14th, he had been at Jesse's home at night, and there was a knock at the door. And Jesse went to the door, and a uniformed police officer was there. And Jesse said, "It's okay, oh, it's okay, he's cool, he's cool."
According to Andy, the officer took off his gun belt, and the next thing Andy knew, the three of them were fooling around.
After it was over, the police officer said, "This has got to be a secret."
A secret affair between an officer and a murder victim is a major red flag.
If any one of our officers had been seeing Jesse Valencia, why is he not being forthcoming? If you have nothing to hide, why not just tell us?
Detectives need to know who this officer is.
They said, "Do you think you'd be able to recognize him if you saw him again?" And he said yes, because it had only been about 2 weeks since that incident.
Detectives ask Andy if he'll look through a book containing the photo of every officer in the Columbia Police Department.
They were having him walk down the hall where he was going to look at the yearbook. Andy Schermerhorn flipped through it without even looking at the pages, closed it, and Schermerhorn began trembling, and he said, "I passed him in the hallway just now. It was him."
The day after the murder of Jesse Valencia, detectives in Columbia, Missouri learned that he was allegedly having a relationship with a local police officer.
Jesse's friend, Andy Schermerhorn, told the investigating detectives that he was an eyewitness to this sexual activity. Schermerhorn began trembling, and he said, "It was him that I passed in the hallway just now." And that was Stephen Arthur Rios.
Stephen Rios' commander believes Andy must be mistaken about the officer's identity.
When the detectives told me that maybe Steve had been having a relationship with the victim, I told the detectives, "You're absolutely wrong. He was married to a wonderful young lady, and they had just had their first child."
Schwartz knows the 27-year-old Rios well. The 5-year veteran is one of the department's rising young stars.
Steve was very outgoing. He communicated well, very ambitious.
He was a young officer who was on his way up in the department because he was a go-getter and a very popular officer.
Detectives don't know if Andy is telling the truth, but they're certainly anxious to get Rios' side of the story.
If he was having a relationship, that does not mean that he had killed Jesse Valencia.
Rios is out of town for a couple of days on a camping trip with coworkers. So they begin tracing Rios' steps the day Jesse's body was found.
He went in for his work shift later in the afternoon, like he normally did, and at that point, the body had been found.
The sergeant on duty that day had told me that Rios was coming to the scene to help identify the body. He had contacted the on-duty sergeant, but said he could help.
Rios said that I met Jesse Valencia when I gave him a ticket back on April 18th.
Investigators pull a copy of the incident report to see if it backs up Rios' story.
April 18th of 2004, some friends of Jesse's were having a party, and the party kept getting loud, and the police showed up to get them to quiet down. And Jesse, this intelligent pre-law major, said, "What's your probable cause?" Well, that got him arrested, and Stephen Rios gave him a municipal court summons for obstructing a governmental operation.
A call to Jesse's mother corroborates the report.
Jesse told me that when he was arrested, that the cop that drove him down to the jail was really nice, and that he talked to him all the way down to the station. And he said, I kind of felt a little bit uncomfortable because he kept asking me personal questions about my life that I didn't really feel like he should be asking me when he was trying to arrest me for something.
But the arrest wasn't the end of the officer's interest. The very next day, he turned up at Jesse's apartment.
After he got arrested, Jesse called me on the phone, and he said, the cop that arrested me last night showed up on my doorstep. He said he had to ask me some more questions, but the questions he was asking Jesse were more of a personal nature. They went out a few times after that, and he would come to Jesse's apartment and just show up unannounced, even when he was in uniform.
Linda doesn't know much more than that, but thinks that Jesse's friend Joan Sheridan might. When they track her down 2 days after the murder, Joan confirms that Jesse saw the officer more than once after the arrest.
He had told her that the officer would typically come by sometime after 3 o'clock and before 6 o'clock in the morning, just for sex, and then leave.
Joan reveals that she got a close-up look at the officer one night when he showed up at Jesse's place.
They showed her a photo lineup, and she was able to pick the person that came by to Jesse's apartment that night. And it was Stephen Rios.
Detectives now have more evidence that Rios was having a scandalous relationship with Jesse. And when they hear what Joan says next, they suspect he may also have a motive for murder.
Joan said that when he went to court for his municipal court summons, Jesse assumed it would be dismissed since he was having sex with the arresting officer, and it had not been dismissed, and that had angered Jesse. So Jesse had told Joan that the next time the police officer comes over, I'm going to tell him that I have a little secret the chief of police might want to know if he doesn't get that ticket dismissed.
The detectives called me and told me that Jesse was threatening to contact the chief and expose Rios. Finally, the light bulb went off. You start looking at who had a motive to kill Jesse Valencia. Rios was very worried about his job. He was very worried about his reputation. He would be very devastated. He would be embarrassed by this information coming out.
That's when Rios became the suspect.
It's a serious matter to accuse one of their own. Investigators quickly regroup to plan the best approach.
They didn't feel they were ready to interview him yet. They were wanting to have the DNA evidence come back before they actually confronted him. But all of a sudden, Rios showed up at the police department and said, could I talk to you for a second?
He had this look on his face, like he was very upset. Very upset.
Coming up, detectives get a devastating phone call.
Steve called me, crying, very upset, and he said, "I've done a bad thing."
And the investigation takes an unexpected new turn.
The officers found him on the 4th floor of a parking garage.
What was he thinking?
Detectives investigating the murder of college student Jesse Valencia are preparing to confront their suspect, police officer Stephen Rios. But Rios goes on the offensive first.
Rios said he was hearing from other people that Jesse was having an affair with a Columbia police officer. And I just wanted you to know that I did give him a ticket, but that's the only contact I had with him, and it's certainly not me.
But detectives tell him flat out that they've heard a different story.
They said, we've talked to a woman who said that she was at Jesse's apartment one night when you showed up. Rios sat there for a minute. And then Rios said, well, you know what? We did become social friends, but it never became anything like a sexual relationship. They said, you know, we've talked to another young man who says he was actually having sex with Jesse, and you came by that night and actually came in and joined them on the bed. And Rios said, what, sex? Like it was the most astounding and false accusation you could ever heard.
He was getting very agitated with the detectives. He's a very prideful person, and he was very upset because they didn't believe him.
It's easy to see that Rios is lying. Detectives bear down hard. And finally, their suspect breaks.
Finally, Rios admitted that he had sex with Jesse. He tried to claim it was just that one time, and then it evolved into that he had had sex with Jesse as many as 6 times.
It's a stunning admission and a strong motive for murder.
He was embarrassed. He obviously did not want this information out if he was keeping it secret to begin with, especially from his wife, you know, in his family.
Police may not have the physical evidence to prove that Rios is a killer, but they do have something that's almost as good.
We were able to prove that he was lying.
There's an old saying in law enforcement that a lie, a provable lie, is the next best thing to a confession. And that Stephen Rios was caught in lots of provable lies.
But detectives aren't finished interrogating their suspect. They ask for his whereabouts the night that Jesse was killed.
He said he had been at work and he got off at 3 o'clock in the morning like he normally did. And he said that that night he'd gone onto the rooftop of the parking garage with a few other officers, and they had drank a few beers before they went home. And he said he got home about 5:15 to 5:30, took a shower, and got in bed.
Detectives grill Rios for over 3 hours, looking for any cracks in his story.
He still maintained he'd had nothing to do with Jesse's death. At that point, investigators let him go. He was definitely a suspect, but the question remained, can we prove it beyond a reasonable doubt?
Investigators' next step is to create a timeline for the night of Jesse's murder and see how Rios' alibi fits in.
His wife corroborated that he had gotten home in that 5:15 to 5:30 time frame.
Other officers confirm Rios worked until 3 a.m. and then had some drinks with them on the rooftop that night. The security door records reveal that Rios left the roof at 4:37 a.m., 45 minutes before he got home.
One of the detectives actually drove from the parking garage to Jesse's home the same time of night, and it was 3.5 minutes. He then drove from the scene of the murder to Rios' home, and it was 10 minutes.
This gave a window of time of 20 to 30 minutes that were potentially unaccounted for at the time that Jesse Valencia was apparently killed.
And this gave us a timeline that could show that Rios could have done this murder within that time.
Investigators search Rios's home, car, and work locker, but they uncover nothing to tie him to the crime. Then, out of the blue, Captain Schwartz receives an alarming phone call.
Steve called me crying, very upset, and he said, "I've done a bad thing." The first question I asked him was, "Where are you?" And he said that he was in Kansas City and that he had bought a shotgun. I really thought he was going to kill himself. And my first reaction was no. I said, "You need to just stop what you're doing. Just come back. Just come back to Columbia and we'll get through it."
Captain Schwartz is able to talk Rios into driving the 150 miles back home, where police take him into custody.
Still wasn't under arrest, but he was put on a 96-hour hold for an involuntary commitment to a mental facility, just for observation to make sure that he wouldn't kill himself.
But Stephen Rios is still despondent. He manages to evade hospital security, and soon the entire Columbia police force is on alert.
I got a phone call that Steve had escaped and was on top of the parking garage, threatening suicide.
One of the officers found him on the 4th floor of a parking garage, and Rios climbed up on the wall, claiming he was going to jump.
When they called me and said he's on top of the garage, he's threatening suicide, what was he doing? What was he thinking?
Police officer Stephen Rios, a suspect in the murder of Jesse Valencia, has escaped protective custody and is threatening to lead to his death.
This is one of the busiest parts of campus. It's about 7 o'clock at night. He goes to the roof of the parking garage, starts threatening to jump.
There's a crowd below. There are people watching this. People are videotaping this, taking pictures. It's bizarre.
Police arrive on the scene to try to talk Rios off the ledge.
All I could think of was, here we go again. Why are you putting everyone through this? It was just putting everyone through a nightmare.
After a tense 45-minute standoff, they finally managed to talk Rios back from the brink.
He was taken back into custody and again put into a mental facility and put on a suicide watch while we were finishing our investigation to determine whether or not he would be charged with Jesse's murder.
3 weeks after Jesse's murder, the analysis of the hairs found on Jesse's chest give police the evidence they need to charge Rios with the crime.
They were able to say the persons who left those hairs on Jesse's chest, limb hairs that would have come from somebody's arm, those hairs matched to Stephen Rios. And that's when we realized that they teach Columbia police officers at the training academy how to administer a chokehold, and that cuts off the blood flow to the brain and renders a person unconscious in 3 to 8 seconds. That could account for these limb hairs, in addition to the bruises that went across the front of his chest and in the middle of his back.
On July 1st, 26 days after Jesse Valencia's body was found, Stephen Arthur Rios is arrested and charged with first-degree murder.
Did you kill Jesse Valencia?
No, I did not.
During the week-long trial, prosecutors lay out their theory of how the murder went down.
Rios came by after his shift was over, thinking they were going to have sex. Jesse confronted him.
Jesse was threatening to contact the chief and expose Rios.
and he knew his career and his happy marriage would probably be over. And that had angered Rios. The neighbor heard this argument going on, and Jesse's yelling, "Stop it, stop it." Jesse then, clad only in his shorts and barefoot, ran out, being chased by Stephen Rios. The Stephen Rios caught him from behind and choked him into unconsciousness, put him on the ground, cut his throat, and that's what I believe happened in the last minutes of Jesse Valencia's life.
Prosecutors know they have a strong case, but convincing a jury that a police officer is a murderer is sure to be a hard sell.
If even one of the 12 jurors feels like it's not the person, then you have a hung jury or a not guilty verdict.
After 8 long hours, the jury returns with a verdict.
The jury finds the defendant, Stephen Arthur Rios, guilty of murder in the second degree.
I did feel a great sense of relief and even pride when the case was over and Stephen Rios had not gotten away with murder.
Stephen Arthur Rios receives a sentence of life in prison for the slaying of Jesse Valencia.
I don't feel like that Jesse really got justice because I wanted the death penalty for him. He took my whole life away from me.
Anytime you have an officer who has done a heinous type act like this and taken someone's life, it is a huge stain. And for law enforcement everywhere.
For Jesse's mother, her son's legacy is in the way he lived his life, not the way it ended.
I want people to remember the Jesse that was constantly laughing.
Was disappeared on Monday, January 12, 2004. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Terrence Williams' last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to him. When 27-year-old Terrence Williams goes missing after a night of partying, his family fears for his safety.
Terrence didn't go a day without calling me.
But events soon to be uncovered will spin a simple case of a missing man into a complex and controversial investigation.
You're a seasoned veteran. You're seasoned. How can you forget something that happened 4 days ago?
It was just chilling to have all these little pieces that sounded so similar.
Something of this magnitude wouldn't go unnoticed.
And a sheriff's office is confronted with the unthinkable.
It doesn't matter how we look. There's a case to be solved here.
On a mild January night in 2004 on Florida's Gulf Coast, Marcia Williams drops off her 27-year-old son Terrence at his home in Naples after a long day of work. As she watches her only son step out of the car, she marvels at how far Terrence has come in the 2 years since he moved to Florida.
When he first moved to Naples, he would worry if he couldn't find a job. But I was always his coach, you know, his cheerleader. Just hang in there. You're gonna make it. You're gonna be okay.
Terrence's mother has always done her best to support her son, and she is the reason he moved to Florida in the first place, leaving behind 3 of his 4 children in Tennessee.
I was married and moved to Naples with my husband. A couple of months later, Terrence moved to Naples. Well, you know, he had to be with his mother.
Having difficulty meeting the child support needs for his 4 kids, Terrence hopes the move will give him more financial opportunities. With the housing boom in Southwest Florida in full swing, jobs were plentiful.
He found a job in construction, and later on he decided to work a little bit harder, so he found a second job at Pizza Hut in Bonita Springs, Florida, which is just a very short ride from Naples, Florida.
After losing his driver's license in Tennessee while driving under the influence, Terrence has been dependent on his mother and his roommate Jason to get him places. His new job at Pizza Hut is a 13-mile trip from home, straight through the new, sprawling suburb of affluent North Naples. In December of 2003, yearning for more independence, Terrence shops around for a car.
He has this thing for Cadillacs, so he went and he bought a Cadillac.
After 2 years living in Naples without incident, Terrence is itching to gain back his freedom. But he will have to wait 6 months until June before he can get his license back. After only a few weeks on the job at Pizza Hut, Terrence seems to be getting along well with his new coworkers. He has been invited to a work party later that night in Bonita Springs, but first, Terrence needs to go back to Naples to change clothes.
I picked him up from work, took him back to his house. The last thing he said to me was, "Bye, Mama. I'll see you later."
Once inside his house, Terrence tries to convince his roommate to accompany him to the party.
He egged me on just a little bit, saying, "Oh, come on, you can come with me, this and that." And I just had to say, no.
Without a ride, Terrence decides to take a risk by driving himself to Bonita Springs in his unregistered Cadillac.
He says, "All right, see you later."
A short time later, Jason receives a worrisome call from Terrence, who has pulled over at a shopping center to use a payphone.
He says, "Oh man, all I see is a bunch of cops around."
Although Terrence usually maintains composure, his roommate senses fear in his friend's voice. Maybe Terrence regrets taking out the car.
He goes, "I'm just talking to you right now just so that I can see what's going on and, maybe wait him out." After a few minutes, he says, "Okay, I'm gonna go." I said, "All right, have a good night." And that was it.
I've always taught Terrence, wherever you are, you call somebody and you let them know what's going on.
A few minutes after hanging up with Terrence, Jason places his phone next to the TV and heads off to bed. The next morning when Jason wakes up, he finds his roommate has not come home. At first, Jason isn't worried.
He has this rule that if he's gone for a couple days, don't worry about it, because he might be staying at someone's house.
That Monday morning, Jason checks his voicemail to see if Terrence has called.
I had a couple missed calls from a number I didn't recognize at 4 in the morning. So I called those numbers back.
The woman who answers says she is one of Terrence's co-workers from Pizza Hut. She distinctly remembers seeing him leave the party alone, sometime between 5 and 6 a.m. Maybe Terrence had called Jason wanting a ride home.
I wish that I left my cell phone on my nightstand like I always did. That night, I just so happened to forget it on the entertainment center.
Meanwhile, on the north side of town, Terrence's mother is just waking up. For no particular reason, she has a gut feeling that something terrible has happened to her only son.
I was so nervous. I got up and I had Terrence in my mind. And I just walked through the house and I just prayed.
Despite her uneasiness, Terrence's mother continues her day as planned.
I got myself together. I went to work.
The following day, Marcia still has not heard from her son.
Tuesday, his roommate sent me an email. He said, "Have you heard from Terrence?" I said, "No."
To Marcia, it is a sign that something is gravely wrong.
Terrence didn't go a day without calling me. We were just too close.
Coming up, the disturbing disconnect between witness testimony and what a responding officer recalls.
You're a seasoned veteran. How can you forget something that happened 4 days ago?
27-year-old Terrence Williams has just started a new job at a Pizza Hut in Bonita Springs, Florida. On Sunday, January 11th, the Naples resident takes his newly bought vintage Cadillac to an after-work employee party, even though he does not have a license to drive. The next morning, Terrence isn't home, and nobody knows where he is.
His roommate tried to call everybody that he knew trying to find him. The next day came, and we went through the same thing again.
I started calling the hospitals. No one who fit his description showed up. So then I started calling the jails, thinking that he might have gotten picked up for driving that thing without a license. No one picked him up. I started to worry a little bit more, because now he's nowhere to be found.
Wednesday came. I couldn't stay at work. I had to do something. I had to find my child.
Marcia goes to the Pizza Hut where Terrence works, and they confirm her fears. He has missed work for the last 3 days and has failed to pick up his last 2 paychecks. She then drives to the Collier County Sheriff's Office, intending to file a missing persons report.
We went to a substation, and I told them I can't find my son. Well, I was told, he's grown. If you haven't heard from him in a month, you come back.
Although Marcia has no proof that Terrence is in danger, she knows her son would never drop out of sight without letting someone know.
We had not had any arguments, no disagreements, nothing. He's like, okay, I'll see you later, Mama. That's the last time that I spoke with him. That night when I dropped him off.
Marcia reaches out to her family in Tennessee for help.
One of my sisters said, give me all of the numbers to the hospitals, the morgues, anything you can think of. And they made calls from Chattanooga.
The Williams family started contacting our dispatcher's office around January 15th of 2004.
Because of the sheer volume of calls coming into the Collier County Sheriff's Office from the family, police begin to take Terrence's case more seriously. A deputy is dispatched to his mother's house to take a report.
When I was first questioned face to face, I said, he's not coming back. He said, well, how do you know? I said, a mother knows.
Then, 24 hours later, Terrence's aunt in Tennessee uncovers a lead that could bring them one step closer to finding Terrence.
She said, we found the car. She told me that the car was towed from his cemetery. I'm going like, oh my God, he could be in the trunk of the car. Everything just goes through your mind, everything.
Marcia wastes no time, heading over to the towing company's lot.
I ID'd the car right away. His 2 jackets were in there. Empty carton of Newport cigarettes, which is what he smoked. And I said, that's the car.
The manager tells Marcia that the car was towed from Naples Memorial Cemetery on the 12th of January because it was obstructing traffic. According to the report, the tow was requested by a deputy from the Collier County Sheriff's Office.
From that point, we were just continuously calling the Sheriff's Department, just trying to get somebody to help.
But the Sheriff's Office is unable to provide them with any more information, since there has been no arrest or incident report filed. The next step is to see if there were witnesses at the cemetery.
I called the cemetery, and I spoke with whoever was there that morning, and they told me that they witnessed Terrence been pulled over.
Finally, there is a break. Terrence's family now has a new last known location, and they know who had the Cadillac towed. He is a 17-year patrol veteran named Deputy Steve Calkins. But what they are told next only heightens the mystery surrounding the young man's disappearance.
The witnesses see Calkins pull into the parking lot following Terrence Williams' Cadillac. They all remember he had his emergency lights activated, and nobody remembered hearing the siren on.
The funeral home employees say the deputy asked the young man for identification, which he did not have.
They saw an interaction between the two, and some of the witnesses believe they saw Calkins pat Terrence down and place him in the back of the car. But nobody had noted any sort of like a confrontational type interaction between the two. It seemed very cordial.
The witnesses were asked by the deputy, can I leave his car here? I'll be back to have it towed. And they said yes.
According to witness accounts, the deputy returns alone somewhere between 15 minutes to an hour later. He then gets into Terrence's car and moves it from the parking spot in front of the funeral home to the side of the road.
The car was pulled up to obstruct traffic, and the keys were found on the ground outside of the car. That's my understanding.
The more Terrence's family hears, the less the scenario makes sense. Now, knowing Terrence was taken away by an officer and that he was driving on expired tags without a license, insurance, or registration, they question why the deputy did not arrest him.
And all I wanted to do was talk to him. I wanted him to give me any other information that he could give me.
The Williams family repeatedly calls the police communication center, hoping for answers. Since no one in the dispatch can find any information on Terrence, a supervisor eventually calls Deputy Calkins directly to get to the bottom of the mystery.
Yeah. I hate to bother you at home on your day off, but this woman's been bothering us all day. You towed a car from Vanderbilt to 111 Hyundai, a Cadillac. Do you remember it?
No.
Do you remember? She said it was near the cemetery.
Cemetery.
And the people at the cemetery are telling her you put somebody in the back of your vehicle and arrested them, and I don't show you arresting anybody.
I never arrested nobody.
That's what I thought. Okay.
I gotta think about this one for a while.
But you're sure no one was with that vehicle?
No.
It was around 12:30 in the afternoon?
Jesus, I can't think of it.
You should be my age, huh?
He has no memory of this contact.
But Terrence's mother finds this hard to believe after hearing the witness's testimony at the cemetery and seeing the deputy's signature on the tow record.
You're a seasoned veteran. You're seasoned. How can you forget something that happened 4 days ago?
After more pressure from Terrence's parents, a second call is made later that day from the sheriff's office to the deputy. This time, his memory returns.
At that point, he does say, oh yeah, that he remembers making contact with Terrence.
Coming up, a coincidence in the extreme is revealed when details in a deputy's incident report mirror the case of another missing man.
Something of this magnitude wouldn't go unnoticed.
"4 days after Terrence Williams is last seen leaving a party, his family finds out that his car was towed hours later from a North Naples cemetery. Witnesses at the cemetery remember seeing a white Cadillac getting pulled over by a patrol deputy, and a young man fitting Terrence's description being ushered into the back of the police car. 7 days later, Corporal Steve Calkins is asked to submit an incident report.
On the 19th, the investigators make contact with Calkins, and he tells the first group of investigators that he runs into Terrence coming down Vanderbilt Beach Drive Road, where he says that he could see the car was obviously having problems.
Hearing this testimony puzzles Terrence's mother.
The deputy stated that the car was in distress. The car was just taken out of the shop. And when I was finally able to get the car, I drove the car 25 miles. No problem.
But other than a slight time discrepancy, the witness accounts mirror Calkins' report.
His side of the story was that Terrence was kind of pleading for a ride to work. Would you please give him a ride up the block to the Circle K? At first, Calkins says, no, I'll get you a cab. But eventually he says he seems like a nice guy, he's persistent, and he does decide to give him a ride up to the Circle K.
Because Terrence has a tainted history with the law from his early adulthood in Chattanooga, his mother finds Calkins' account hard to believe.
Terrence wouldn't ask a cop to take him to work. He would have called me first, or Jay.
She also does not understand why Terrence would have lied about working at the Circle K.
His side of the story is that when he puts him out at the Circle K, he tells Terrence to get his ID in order and make sure that the paperwork is in order for the car.
According to Calkins, Terrence told him the registration papers were in the glove box. So the deputy decides to go back to the cemetery alone to further investigate the car.
He doesn't find any of this paperwork that he claims that Terrence told him was in there.
Feeling deceived by the man Calkins said he knows only as Terrence, the deputy says he phoned the Circle K to track him down. He says he was told that no one by that name worked there. The deputy then called in the license plate number to dispatch. He found Terrence was driving on an expired tag. Now, with a new piece of the puzzle in the search for Terrence, family and investigators spring into action. The first stop is the Circle K. They're hoping the missing man has been caught on surveillance camera and ask the manager to screen video from January the 12th.
Terrence's stepfather viewed that tape by himself before law enforcement did, and he didn't see it there.
There's nowhere on camera that Terrence was dropped off in the deputy's car.
Employees who worked that day are also questioned.
Nobody at the Circle K ever saw Terrence get out of the vehicle. A very busy Circle K, especially at noontime.
But investigators know the constant flow of traffic would make it less likely for someone to remember seeing the alleged drop-off.
So we have no independent witnesses.
Meanwhile, the Williams family are desperate to know more, and they are not satisfied with the way Deputy Calkins has conducted himself.
So I became more suspicious when it didn't seem as if he was helping at all. So I said, enough of this. I filed a complaint.
Internal Affairs immediately opens a case on Deputy Calkins to see if he has violated any policies in his handling of the traffic stop. As both the criminal investigation into the disappearance of Terrence Williams and the Internal Affairs probe into Calkins' conduct heats up, detectives find themselves in an awkward position.
Early on, when the people running this investigation realized that we were looking at one of our own, I think wisely at that point they chose to invite outside agencies to come in.
The Florida Department of Law Enforcement, along with the FBI, are asked to conduct their own investigation to avoid any accusations of a cover-up.
In this particular case, you've got a law enforcement officer as their person of interest. It's always important to have a third party look at it so there isn't any appearance of any impropriety.
But there is more. The case has the sheriff's office particularly unnerved for another reason. It is eerily similar to a complaint filed against the same deputy just 3 months earlier, also in connection with a missing man in North Naples.
The connection was actually made quite quickly. It's a small agency, small enough to realize that something of this magnitude wouldn't go unnoticed.
25 miles down the road, in a poor migrant farming town called Immokalee, the case of a missing Mexican immigrant, 23-year-old Felipe Santos, has rocked the community. The last person known to have seen Felipe before he disappeared, just months earlier, was Deputy Steve Calkins. Things were looking up for Felipe Santos. after 2 difficult years working as a migrant farmer.
He was able to find a job to work in construction, which meant that that was a more stable job. It was a little bit better paid.
With his girlfriend expecting their first child, this new prospect was good news for Felipe. The only problem was that the job happened to be 30 miles away.
More often than not, you have to get there on your own steam. Felipe and his brothers had acquired a car and were driving themselves to work in the morning.
As undocumented workers, neither Felipe nor his brothers was able to apply for driver's licenses or get insurance.
He was driving without a license, not because he wasn't trying to follow the laws, but because he was trying to support his family.
On the morning of October 14th, 2003, Felipe Santos said goodbye to his girlfriend and newborn baby girl.
Felipe and his brothers were going to work. They'd gotten all the way into Naples, and they were very close to the work site when they were in an accident.
Felipe got into the wrong turning lane in the left side, came back into traffic, making contact with the other car.
The 2 damaged vehicles pulled out of the busy intersection and into a shopping center. The other driver flagged down a police car. Deputy Steve Calkins emerged from the cruiser. Coming up, 2 men are caught driving without a license or insurance by the same responding deputy, and both men are missing.
How do you handle
Your County Sheriff's Office learns that 27-year-old Terrence Williams was last seen getting into the back of Deputy Steve Calkins' patrol car. The case of the missing young father intensifies. Police are concerned. It is the second time that Deputy Calkins was the last person confirmed to have contact with a missing person out of North Naples. 3 months earlier, he was the responding officer to a car crash involving Felipe Santos.
Contact first with the citizen who explained a little bit of the crash, and from his account, Felipe Santos identified himself as the driver of the car.
When he found out that Felipe didn't have a driver's license, he put him immediately in the back of the patrol car.
Calkins described it as a very amicable situation where everyone was just cordial.
But a statement given to the police by the other driver tells a slightly different story.
She said that when Corporal Calkins arrived on scene, he seemed agitated and made a comment that he was tired of handling incidences with people without a driver's license and without insurance.
According to witnesses, the deputy drove out of the parking lot with Felipe in the backseat of the cruiser. His family believed the officer arrested Felipe and that they would find him in the county jail.
They called the jail center a number of times during the day and actually went over to the jail that afternoon. And Felipe wasn't there.
Two weeks after the accident, with no word from the dedicated new father, the Santos family finally received a copy of Deputy Calkins' incident report, explaining why Felipe was not in lockup.
Calkins said that he decided not to take him to jail because he was polite, and that he was going to drop him off at the Circle K so that he could make a call, so he could get a ride.
According to the incident report, Deputy Calkins did not want Felipe to get back in his car, which is why he drove him only a half-mile up the road to the Circle K gas station. But before letting Felipe go, Deputy Calkins issued him 3 tickets. The first, driving without a license, obliged Felipe to appear in court on November 13th, while the other 2 carried fines totaling $2,000. After seeing the citations and reading the deputy's report, the Santos family feels Deputy Calkins did not act appropriately.
They were finally able to file a missing persons report and also a complaint, because if he had been arrested, then he should have been in jail. He shouldn't have just disappeared.
Deputy Calkins is made aware that his handling of the accident will be investigated by Internal Affairs. In his 17 years with the Collier County Sheriff's Office, his record has been commendable. He has even been lauded a hero on several occasions while on patrol. Now, under tight scrutiny, Calkins is forthcoming and volunteers a taped interview. As far as the missing persons case goes, police have very little to go on.
Mr. Santos was of legal age, had every right in America to just not to be found.
But Felipe's failure to appear on the November 13th scheduled court date in accordance with the citation now does make him a fugitive. Could he be hiding from the police intentionally to escape prison or deportation? Although plausible, investigators do not believe this to be the case.
We didn't have any evidence of a crime, but there were certain red flags that the original investigators picked up on and kept the case alive. No family contact. He didn't pick up his paycheck.
The hunt for Felipe involves multiple agencies and crosses borders, and not a shred of evidence surfaces to indicate Felipe is alive and well. After nearly a 2-month administrative investigation, Deputy Calkins is exonerated of any wrongdoing regarding his actions following the traffic stop.
Would another police officer do what he did? I don't know, but what he did was correct and according to procedures at the time.
Then, just 72 hours after Felipe's family is sent a letter stating Deputy Calkins has been cleared of any wrongdoing, Terrence Williams goes missing. Is this a coincidence in the extreme, or something far worse? Nine days after Terrence Williams goes missing, the Collier County Sheriff's Office Crime Scene Unit processes his car. They are looking for any kind of evidence that would help them determine what happened to Terrence.
There was some trace evidence found in the car. However, it's crucial for the case that be kept confidential at this time.
2 days later, the Sheriff's Office holds a press conference, asking the public for help in locating Terrence Williams. Tips start flooding in.
In the beginning of the investigation, there were several tips that came in, sightings of Terrence. One of the officers believed that he might have saw somebody that might have been Terrence by the Granada Shopping Center. But that was fully investigated, and it just didn't pan out.
On February 12th, 1 month after Terrence went missing, Internal Affairs asked Steve Calkins to come in for a taped interview. As part of the administrative investigation, Calkins signs a document stating nothing he says can be used as evidence in a criminal court. Feeling satisfied with his answers, investigators then issue Deputy Calkins a polygraph, and he passes. Coming up, the investigation takes a dramatic turn when police uncover a recorded dispatch call on the day Terrence went missing.
He lied. To me, that was more important than anything in that phone call.
It has been over 1 month since Terrence Williams went missing, and more than 4 months since Felipe Santos disappeared. There has been no sign of either man since the day they each vanished.
Terrence and Felipe goes together now, you know. The last person that we are aware of that saw them was the deputy.
The criminal investigations into both missing men share the same starting point, Deputy Calkins' patrol car, since that is where both men were last seen. Detectives orchestrate a covert forensic search of the car.
They were looking for any telltale signs of a violent struggle that might have been a sign of a cleanup in the car where blood could have spattered.
I was told that his car was searched and it was immaculate. That's the word that you use, very clean.
But investigators did not stop there. A GPS device is put on his vehicle to see where Calkins spends his time while on patrol. They are looking for secluded spots where he could have taken Terrence, if in fact a crime was committed.
They identified 12 areas at that time where they felt intensive searches needed to be done.
After 2 days of exhaustive searches, Using aerial photography and several cadaver dog teams, investigators find no new evidence.
Unfortunately, it was just so much wasteland out there. It's wooded area. You could do something in broad daylight and nobody would know.
Meanwhile, detectives delve into Terrence's background to see if he has any reason to disappear on his own.
Terrence, as a young man, did have some issues with the law up in Tennessee.
On January 14th, 2 days after the morning he went missing, Terrence was scheduled to appear in front of a judge in Chattanooga, involving back pay for child support.
He would have never ran from it. He didn't miss his court dates because he was trying to make everything right so that he could keep moving forward in his life.
When he failed to show up, a warrant was issued for his arrest. Now, police must question whether this warrant has anything to do with Terrence going missing.
Terrence did have full knowledge of the proceedings against him. Did he have reason to disappear for that? Yeah, but if he did, he's doing a masterful job.
Meanwhile, the internal affairs probe into Calkin's conduct the day Terrence went missing continues. After giving detectives his statement on February 12th, they must make sure the deputy's story checks out. They pull tapes of the calls the deputy made into dispatch that afternoon, and what they find is disconcerting. Just 4 minutes after finding out Terrence's tag was expired, Calkins contacts his friend in dispatch with a story that contradicts both his original statement and what the witnesses saw. Previously, Calkins said he followed Terrence into the cemetery parking lot because the man was having car trouble. Then, the deputy said he later moved the Cadillac to the side of the road so that it could be towed. Now, investigators hear Calkins joking with his friend about an abandoned Cadillac that needs towing, within an hour of allegedly driving Terrence to the Circle K. And while the inappropriate language is in itself a policy violation, it's the content of the call that sets off alarms.
He lied. He said the car was abandoned. He never mentioned to his friend this contact that he had with this individual. And to me, that was more important than anything in that phone call. It's just a big red flag.
Calkins later denies lying, saying that he was simply joking around with a coworker. He also states that he moved the car not to make it look abandoned, but to make things easier for the towing company. But there is more. Just over 20 minutes later, another baffling call came into dispatch. This time, Calkins requests a background check on Terrence. Up until now, investigators have been led to believe that Deputy Calkins' interaction with Terrence lasted no more than 5 minutes, and that he never knew the man's last name. Yet now, 23 minutes after he calls dispatch to have the car towed, he is able to run a background check using Terrence's full name and a fake birth date. It is a date only Terrence himself could have shared with Calkins.
That became a problem for the investigators. Where did he get the date of birth?
On March 30th, Steve Calkins is asked once again to come in for questioning by Internal Affairs. When asked about the discrepancies, the deputy admits he cannot account for them.
He thought he found paperwork in the car, but he was confronted that you already said there was no paperwork in the car.
The more Steve Calkins is interviewed by Internal Affairs, the more inconsistent he gets.
He was boxed in on a lot of questions, couldn't answer. And that's alarming.
Three months after Terrence went missing, police issue Deputy Calkins another polygraph. Unlike before, the questions now focus on what happened after Deputy Calkins had Terrence's car towed.
He was asked where to get the date of birth. Was Terrence with him? He failed that. He failed when he had any second contact with Terrence. He failed that. He was found to be totally deceptive.
The polygraph results beg the question: did Steve Calkins see Terrence again after allegedly dropping him off at the Circle K? And if so, why isn't he coming clean? Calkins insists his interaction with both Terrence and Felipe ended at the Circle K, and that he had nothing to do with either man going missing. It's the last time Stephen Calkins answers questions from law enforcement about what happened on January 11th.
The fact that he's no longer cooperating sits heavy with a lot of folks.
And if Calkins is hiding something, there is nothing more the police can do.
No probable cause ever came up to search his house. Love to have done it, but just no probable cause ever existed. Do we have issues with some of the things that he said and did? Yes. But motive, no.
On August 20th, the Internal Affairs investigation comes to a close. All complaints against Steve Calkins are sustained, and he is fired for non-compliance with rules and regulations, untruthfulness, and conduct unbecoming of an officer. 2 weeks later, Calkins appeals the decision.
He felt he was being picked on by the agency, that they were unfairly going after him for political reasons. He felt that the investigators kind of slumped off certain leads.
Calkins' appeal is denied. Although the Collier County Sheriff insists there is no hard evidence to suggest physical harm has come to either Felipe or Terrence.
In case y'all didn't know, it's Black Girl Sunday. Celebrate your girl. We're not. It's whatever.
We hear about a lot of missing children, but there was something really different about Alexis. She was this social media star.
That was one of the alarming things. Does she have a stalker? Somebody following her?
One of the videos captures Alexis Murphy's vehicle pulling in. You can't really tell who's driving.
It was definitely unlikely that Alexis drove her car to some random movie theater in Charlottesville. It was still a lot of questions going through my head. What happened? Where is she?
Alexis has virtually disappeared off the face of the earth. It's just full throttle forward.
It's August 2013. In the rural enclave of Shipman, Virginia.
Go.
17-year-old Alexis Murphy is preparing for senior year at Nelson County High School.
She definitely was a person that could brighten your day on your worst day. My name is Trina Harmon Murphy, and Alexis is my great niece. She was just an incredibly humble, genuine person. She was the total package.
I'm Jasmine Murphy, and I'm Alexis' cousin. She was looking forward to her senior year playing volleyball. I did assistant coaching with her for 2 years. Seeing her play and playing against her at the open gyms, she had definitely developed and grown as a player.
Hey, where my Pacers fans at? Oh, I was serious. None? None at all.
She was definitely attached to her cell phone for sure. If the battery was dying, she would plug in multiple extension cords so that she could still move about the house and take the phone with her.
Okay, my life is pretty much complete right now. Whoever invented this, thank you so much.
Alexis's journey to the cusp of adulthood began on June 5th, 1996, when she was born into a loving, extended family.
Even when she was a baby, she was just a funny, outgoing person. She was always getting into stuff, but I definitely saw her grow up. She was definitely smart. She could come to me for things, or if I had clothes that were too small, hand me down to Alexis. She loved them.
She grew up around most of her cousins, so cousins are more like brothers and sisters.
As she got older, you saw her get more interested in music, dancing. She was forever recording herself dancing. If I was dancing in the car, she would just laugh at me and was like, don't ever do that again. Just a joy. She loved her music and dancing. She definitely did.
Alexis and her friends spend their free time at a local destination, Liberty Gas Station.
The gas station that has the McDonald's connected to it was definitely like the teenage hangout spot.
Alexis went to that gas station every single day. It's a rural county, you know, the gas station is just kind of where kids hang out.
Alexis's social world, however, extends far beyond Shipman, Virginia.
My name is Katie Love, and I was an investigative reporter covering the Alexis Murphy case. In 2013, we're just starting to understand the power of Twitter, and Alexis got it right away. You knew what she was up to because she would tweet it.
In case y'all didn't know, it's Black Girl Sunday. Celebrate your girl, or not, it's whatever.
The average teenager probably has a couple hundred followers. Alexis was completely different. We're talking about 12,000 people who just wanted to know what she was up to. She was this social media star.
Gotta go feed the dogs. Don't nobody feel like doing that. Bring your ass here. I haven't even named whatever.
We would joke about it, and she's like, I don't even know how they're following me. I'm like, well, they obviously like what they see or what you're doing.
On Wednesday, July 31st, Alexis hangs out with her cousin, Jasmine.
After volleyball camp, I had asked her to ride with me to Madison Heights to get my eyebrows done. And I remember we had went to the Chinese place to get dinner. And I took her to McDonald's to get a frappe. I believe we had texted that Friday, just randomly, because we always do, but I hadn't talked to her at all that Saturday.
Little did she know, that was the last time that Jasmine would ever see Alexis. Later that weekend, in the early morning hours of Sunday, August 4th, Alexis's family notices something peculiar.
Alexis's grandma realizes that she's missed her 11 p.m. curfew, which is really strange. Alexis never missed curfew, was always in the house on time, and they have no idea where she is. That day, she left the house in her dad's car, the white Nissan, and the car is nowhere to be found.
Of course, her grandmother, immediately started to call her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Alexis was always tapped into that phone. When she didn't answer it, that was a big clue. I thought she'd had a car accident. That was my first thought. Her mom works night shift at the post office, so she came home from work that morning and immediately went to the sheriff's office and filled out a missing persons report.
I'm William Everett Mays, Jr. I go by Billy. I was investigator lieutenant with Nelson County Sheriff's Office. I get a phone call, and it's brought to my attention by one of the deputies with Nelson County that this young lady didn't return home. The deputies had already spoke with the family and got a lot of information that I needed to start my investigation. Teenagers, a lot of times, tend to be a little secretive about what they're doing. We have to take in the account that maybe she is with someone that she doesn't want you to know about, or she's went somewhere that she doesn't want you to know.
As Lieutenant Mays gets up to speed on the case, he's alarmed by Alexis's large Twitter following.
She had a lot of followers on social media, but with that, there's the downside. It's just a breeding ground for predators. With just a matter of hours, I had a huge resource available. We had social media experts from the FBI that were devoted solely to that. That was critical in this case.
I remember coming through her social media and seeing some of the things people would post, like, oh, I would like to meet you, or you may see me sooner than you think. That was one of the alarming things. Does she have a stalker? Is somebody following her?
As investigators dig through the large digital trove, they spot one tweet that points to her plans for early Saturday evening.
As she was posted throughout the day, one of those said she was Berg-bound, which means she was headed to Lynchburg, which is a city just south of Livingston.
Her family explains to investigators the enthusiasm behind the 6:04 p.m. post.
She had an appointment for her senior pictures the following week, and she loved hair and makeup. So her plans that day were to go to Lynchburg and buy hair to do her hair extensions for her senior pictures. Her mom gave her the lecture on not spending too much money on hair, and she told them she loved them and got in her car and drove away. That was her very last tweet.
Police reach out to the Lynchburg store she was headed to, but shopkeepers say she never arrived. Whether or not she ever set foot in the city is a mystery.
The million-dollar question is why? Why she deviated from that plan, and was that voluntary?
To track her movements, Mays subpoenas Alexis's cell records. But while he waits for the results, late that afternoon, Trina devises a plan to find her using an app called Find My Phone.
Oak Ridge Estates was the last location that the Find Me app on her phone actually provided. It's a vast piece of property. It's several thousand acres. So a lot of resources from the sheriff's office and the state police are focused on that area. There was a huge gathering of people. There was tons and tons of people willing to help.
By 6:30, there was a state trooper helicopter in the air looking for her car. By 7:15, the first FBI agent was on the scene. You're on a pendulum between hope and despair.
A suspect on the road to Lynchburg.
It almost made you afraid to even be out at night alone.
And clues from Alexis's final moments lead police to the end of a dirt road.
It looks like something out of a horror movie.
In late July, days before Alexis disappeared, her aunt dropped by her home.
It was just a typical visit, and she was just her happy-go-lucky self, you know. We said our goodbyes as always. Love you, see you later, and that was it. I mean, the normal moments are the ones that are really important, you know. Lord knows I wish I had known that was the last time I was going to see her.
Just hours after Alexis is reported missing, an app called Find My Phone leads police to a 4,800-acre estate called Oak Ridge.
They're searching areas thinking perhaps there was a vehicle accident, that she had ran off the road. We also had contacted the state police for their helicopters to come in and fly the area. So a lot of the attention was focused in that area.
After hours of searching, investigators begin to question the accuracy of the phone tracking app.
Law enforcement find nothing, so it kind of leads them back to square one. That was like this alarm of what is going on.
Perhaps she's establishing a little bit more independence and she wants a little more privacy, as most teenagers do. But her family was very adamant that that was not the case. This probably is bigger than what we think.
With Alexis's phone records still pending, authorities widen their search radius and call in more help as Mays takes a darker view of the situation.
It's becoming more evident to me that this is probably not a defiant juvenile, and this is probably not an accident. So time is of the essence, it's critical. And I was basically the one overseeing all this. We reach out to the Virginia State Police for their special agents, and we probably had close to 50, 60 special agents from the FBI there, which was incredible.
I definitely saw that this was something serious now, more serious than we had thought before.
As the investigation intensifies, the Murphy family's plight explodes into the spotlight.
In the newsroom, we hear about a lot of missing children, but there was something really different about Alexis and how strange it was for this girl to suddenly have no trace.
Family members say 17-year-old Alexis Murphy is a good girl, star volleyball player at Nelson County High School, a devoted daughter who always answers her phone and text.
She became everybody's daughter, everybody's niece, everybody's granddaughter.
But Laura Murphy has been unable to contact her daughter since August 3rd.
Somebody knows something. If it's the littlest thing that they may not think is important, it is.
It allowed people to connect with her family. It was amazing to see how many people organized search parties after search parties looking for Alexis.
My name is Mark Egeman. I work for the Virginia Department of Emergency Management as a search and rescue coordinator. Watching the story develop and grow in the news until we get that call from state police. And then that's when we become involved and it becomes an active mission for us. You have a tremendous amount of woods and country to have to search on foot.
The whole community has mobilized at this point. This was very out of the norm for Nelson County.
It's unclear at this point if investigators have found anything of use for them as they continue to search for Alexis Murphy.
In the midst of this publicity, law enforcement scrutinizes the road Alexis would have taken to Lynchburg. In recent years, it has been the site of a rash of mysterious crimes.
Last count, I believe it's 32 young women and men that are missing on some portion of the 29 corridor. There's something going on for sure on the 29 corridor that needs attention.
Locals attribute this violence to a single anonymous culprit.
When I first started working for Nelson County Sheriff's Office, I had heard about the 29 stalker. There were some young ladies that had been abducted along Route 29 from, say, Albemarle all the way up to Barbersville. You start to wonder if this is something that is connected. Yeah, it was a scare.
It almost made you afraid to even be out at night alone. It was definitely one of those things you kind of opened your eyes even more.
But soon, on Monday, August 5th, 2 days after she vanished, Mays receives some crucial documents. Alexis's cell phone records.
We started looking at the cell phone information and the cell phone records, and were able to determine that Oak Ridge that we didn't need to be there. The phone was pinging somewhere else. One of those hits indicated she was in the Liberty gas station. That's where the focus went at that point. We were able to go and pull that video surveillance of Alexis being there.
Could this footage be the key to finding Alexis?
She was there, and she was there alone. So we were trying to connect all those dots and put those pieces of the puzzle together. That's the last known ping on her cell phone. We knew that this was probably the last known place that she was when she went missing.
In the case of Alexis Murphy, police have obtained surveillance footage from the Liberty gas station on the day she disappeared, after her last tweet around 6 p.m. Could this video hold clues to her whereabouts?
It was somewhere around 7 p.m. What I seen when we watched the video was Alexis coming into the store to pay for her gas. She looked fine when she was inside to me. She didn't appear to be distressed or distraught or in any kind of danger or scared, and she was there alone. There was really nothing that looked out of place. And then she exits the gas station. She couldn't be very close when she left. It was somewhere around 7 p.m., and I believe it was 7:17 p.m. It was the last activity on her phone. So we have roughly a 17-minute window there that we're trying to figure out what happened. We were starting to canvass the area, perimeter around the Liberty gas station, talking to every resident there. We're looking for this young lady and her phone. There is a car lot directly across Route 29. We were searching that area and searching trunks of cars just because we didn't know.
Law enforcement finds no sign of Alexis or her car or phone. But on August 6th, 3 days after she went missing, a tipster contacts police about a major discovery in Charlottesville.
Tuesday evening, someone just who had watched the news and had heard about Alexis Murphy's disappearance had noticed this vehicle sitting there and called us. Said, hey, this car is here in Charlottesville. So, of course, we drop everything. We haul freight to Charlottesville. It was Alexis Murphy's car. I wasn't expecting it to be found in Charlottesville. Wasn't close to Nelson County.
The city of Charlottesville lies about 40 miles north of Alexis's hometown of Shipman and 70 miles north of Lynchburg.
It was the Carmichael Cinema area. Then, of course, the media is there before I get there. And it's a circus. It's ridiculous. It made it very difficult for us to get in there to do what we needed to do.
It was leaked on social media that the car was found before the police ever had the opportunity to call and tell us.
It was definitely unlikely that Alexis drove her car to some random movie theater in Charlottesville. If she said she was going to the Berg, then that's where she was going, to Lynchburg. It's odd to end up the opposite direction in which you said you were going. But when I got the news that they had found her car, I wanted something. Some kind of answer to, besides, okay, they found her car. Is she in there? Or what's in the trunk?
My biggest fear was when we popped the trunk, Alexis was going to be in the trunk. And when we do open the trunk, she isn't. Which, it was a relief, but at the same time, it's like, where is she? And her phone is not there.
So you go from, yay, she might still be alive, to, okay, where do we go from here? This is a big piece of the puzzle, but Alexis has virtually disappeared off the face of the earth. You can't find their phone. It's just full throttle forward.
Determined to figure out how the car got there, Mays obtained surveillance footage from surrounding businesses.
There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of CCTV that we're going through. And luckily, one of the videos captures Alexis Murphy's vehicle pulling in on Sunday night at around, I believe it was around 10 o'clock. It's a real grainy video. You can't really tell who's driving. You can just tell that there is a figure that gets out of it. And the subject walks out of frame. It was a creepy scene.
Could this mysterious figure be Alexis? Despite her bold personality, her family thinks otherwise.
She was definitely scared of the dark, so her to walk off in the dark without a light, no, was definitely unlikely to be Alexis.
While the individual does not appear to be Alexis, their identity is unknown.
You can't identify if it's a man, a woman, age, anything. It's not Alexis driving the car, but we have no idea who this person was. Search teams are still out there looking for any clues of where Alexis had gone.
Desperate to understand the mystery figure's connection to Alexis, investigators re-examine the footage from the gas station.
When you look at the video going back, There was an individual that held the door open for her. And there was some it appeared, small talk.
There was something really interesting, and they see something they had never seen before. There was a man holding the door for Alexis Murphy. And it looks like on the footage that there's some sort of conversation between Alexis and this unidentified man. So suddenly, there is a new person of interest in the case. So we're starting to wonder if it's the same person in Charlottesville.
In hopes of identifying a man seen in surveillance footage, police in the Alexis Murphy investigation race to where it was recorded, Liberty gas station.
So there was a question of whether that was someone who maybe was involved in Alexis's disappearance. The attendants who work there were able to easily say, this is a guy named Randy Taylor. He was not someone who just kind of slid under community radar. This is a distinctive man who has this huge Daffy Duck tattoo on his neck. The gas station attendant knew Randy because he has a car that's very distinctive, this camo truck.
Once Lieutenant Mays learns of Taylor's vehicle, he digs deeper into the footage.
The cameras, unfortunately, were not all over the parking lot. But there is a camera that's on a portion of the parking lot, and it catches just a tiny piece of Route 29. Just a few minutes after Alexis exits the gas station, you see this camouflage vehicle and Alexis Murphy's white cars directly behind it. She was actually going north towards Charlottesville, and now she's following him.
The big question is we have no idea why she followed him, which is really strange. What's going on?
Mays sizes up the investigation's new prime target.
We've got to come up with a game plan. Let's figure out what the best avenue of attack is as far as the interview with him, and let's pin him down.
Investigators discover that Taylor lives in a camper just off of Route 29. 4 days after Alexis disappeared, Mays heads towards the property.
We had put him under 24-hour surveillance. I was told by the other agents where this camper was located, but I couldn't find it. The grass was so high around the driveway. It goes into this property. So I finally locate this road. We pull in, and we're basically walking up to this thing. It's just an old abandoned house. Then there's this blue and white camper. It looks like something out of a horror movie. I remember knocking on Randy's door, and he opens the door. We explained to Randy why we're there. And I basically asked him about being at the Liberty gas station. We were looking for this young lady, and he said he had no knowledge. He's never seen her, didn't know her, wasn't at the Liberty gas station, had no idea what we were talking about. And that was an important part of the case for me because I knew then that he was hiding something. But once we confront him with the evidence, there's a video of him holding the door for her, and things changed. He told us he ran into her at Liberty. He admits that she was there.
Without prompting, Taylor launches into a story.
He even goes on to elaborate that he met Alexis Murphy probably a year prior to this at a car wash. He was smoking some marijuana, and she had made a comment about the marijuana. According to him, she was talking about how it smelled like some really good stuff. So when he saw her at the Liberty gas station on August 3rd, he knew who she was.
When pressed again about the August 3rd encounter, Taylor offers an astonishing account.
Also, he's telling us that she's with a black guy, and they're talking about a marijuana sale, and Randy wanted to buy from the guy that she was with. So they come up with an agreement, and they leave, and he goes to his camper. Alexis comes, and this other gentleman follows suit. He buys marijuana. They have some small talk, shoot the bull, and they leave together. That's the last he's seen of her. I didn't believe the story, but we could not rule out the possibility of someone else being involved.
To validate Taylor's story, Mays files for a warrant to search his trailer. Alexis's social media is also scoured in search of the man in Taylor's description.
They got the picture off of some Facebook page or something, but very quickly we're able to identify this guy as Damien. Damien was a resident of Nelson County, but he leaves town shortly after Alexis Murphy is missing and goes to Alabama. That was alarming. That was enough for us to further investigate this.
I knew Damien. We went to high school together. So Alexis' relationship with Damien, I don't know exactly what it was. I knew he worked at McDonald's at the time. She always was at McDonald's getting a frappe. Was he one of the last people to see her? Did he have something to do with it? Did he know about it? It was still a lot of questions going through my head. What happened? Where is she?
Police uncover disturbing clues.
We see that a fingernail is embedded into the carpet. Hearing this kind of evidence, your stomach just turns.
Authorities close in on a suspect.
I don't think he expected the rain of hell that came down on him.
And cryptic circumstances envelop Alexis's final moments.
So it leaves me with the million-dollar question: how did you get her there?
Investigators have learned that a friend of Alexis, who left town after she disappeared, may have been the last person to see her alive.
So myself and Special Agent Pittman with the FBI, we flew to Alabama. We made arrangements to meet with Damien and talk to him in further detail about what his involvement may or may not have been.
As they sit down to interrogate Damien, Mays asks him about his whereabouts on the weekend Alexis vanished.
He was in Nelson County staying in a hotel with his girlfriend. He said he was at the blood bank donating plasma, and this was right around the time that she went missing. But he wasn't anywhere close to where Alexis was in Nelson County. So he wasn't even in the area when she went missing. He said he had no involvement whatsoever.
After the interrogation, Mays returns to Virginia and digs into Damien's account of the weekend of August 3rd.
We were able to corroborate his timeline and his alibis. There was nothing. There was no dots to connect with Damien. It was just another ploy for Randy to throw the investigation off.
After clearing Damien, critical information in the case against Randy Taylor comes through.
We're able to secure a search warrant for his camper. We execute that search warrant. We go in, we explain to Randy why we're there, and we pull him out of the camper. The forensic techs go in and start the evidence recovery process.
They go to his house, his trashy dump of a camper. It was a bit messy. Inside, they find evidence. We see that a fingernail is embedded into the carpet, but they find a hair extension and then a diamond stud. Hearing this kind of evidence, your stomach just turns.
It wasn't something good when I heard that they found all those things there, because those are things that any girl, you're not going to just let that go. It had to be taken from you. Alexis didn't have false nails, things like that. It's not going to just come out easy.
The evidence is sent for DNA testing. Then, authorities search the grounds around the camper for Alexis's body.
Behind the property, there was just all kinds of garbage and trash that had been piled up, and there's a mountain. And behind the house, there's a trail that goes up the mountain. We search the side of the mountain to see if he's taken her up the mountain. It was a very difficult search. You know, everybody's getting ate up by ticks and chiggers. We blanketed that side of the ridge and we have nothing. No indication that anybody had been up there, no four-wheel tracks, nothing.
Her cell phone was still missing, and she's still missing. We were still hopeful that we could find more evidence. So I actually reached out to administrators with the Department of Corrections and inquired a little bit more about these cell phone dogs.
We learned that law enforcement is using canine dogs to sniff a very specific adhesive found in phones. We start to see canines sniffing Randy Taylor's camper. These law enforcement dogs are smelling some sort of scent, and they find Alexis Murphy's phone just 70 feet from Randy Taylor's camper. It's broken. It looks like someone's tried to take out the battery. Finding Alexis's white iPhone was the nail in the coffin.
This was her lifeline. I have that on your property, and she's not here. Something terrible has happened. So I really think that pretty much sealed the deal. I went ahead and arrested him for abduction with intent to defile. He looked like a ghost. I mean, like a deer in headlights. I don't think Randy expected the rain of hell that came down on him as fast as it came down on him.
After the arrest, Mays seeks out the Murphy family for a difficult discussion.
So a decision was made to set the family down and tell them we don't think she's alive and we want to go forward with a murder charge. And to do that, we had to have their support and understanding that she is dead.
I think we had to agree with the evidence that was presented before us, because obviously the evidence was there, right? And we can't find her. She has had no contact with her family. That was kind of the defining moment to know that chances are she wasn't here anymore.
As the case heads to trial, police make Randy Taylor an offer.
Before the trial, law enforcement offered Randy Taylor a deal, 20 years if you just tell the family where Alexis Murphy's body is. His response, give me 10 and I'll tell you where she is. It's like really unbelievable.
Months later, in May 2014, at the Nelson County Courthouse, the first-degree murder trial of Randy Taylor begins. While the prosecution has a wealth of evidence, the lack of a corpse presents a problem.
This was an unprecedented case in Virginia. To try someone for murder with no body, it's very hard to prosecute without a body.
In May 2014, the murder trial of Randy Taylor commences. On behalf of the state, prosecutor Anthony Martin delivers the opening statement.
The prosecution was able to paint this really violent scene with the amount of evidence that was just found inside of this camper. Something horrible has happened.
But in their opening argument, Taylor's attorney takes aim at the prosecution's assertions.
The defense was constantly saying, there's no body, there's no murder weapon. They kept hitting on it.
His explanation of the hair extensions was the police planted it, but we knew that he was full of it.
After opening statements, the prosecution unloads its most potent evidence, an item discovered on a deeper search of Taylor's camper after his arrest.
One thing I will never forget is Randy Taylor's bloody t-shirt. Seeing the t-shirt covered in not just a little bit, but a lot of blood, you could tell the jury's mood suddenly shift.
Attorneys reveal the results of DNA testing on items found inside the camper.
And it was her DNA on the shirt. It's a mix of blood and saliva and fluid. We have her DNA on these hair extensions that were found. They're glued and woven into the hair They don't just fall out. That indicated to us that there was a violent struggle that took place.
We know that there was nothing casual about this encounter, that it was extremely violent.
After closing arguments, the litigators turned the case over to the jury. Within hours, the jurors announce that they've reached a verdict.
I was at volleyball practice. I remember looking online and seeing guilty, and I just busted out in tears. It was a relief, like kind of a joy for us, because you're going away. You're not going to hurt anybody else.
It was a few moments of the weight has been lifted. We have some type of justice. And we did celebrate, but the next morning we still woke up to the same reality. We still don't have her.
We convict him on both counts of abduction with intent to defile and first-degree murder. And as the jury is leaving to go sentence him, Randy stood up in open court and said, "I'll take the original deal of 20 years and tell you where she is." And of course, it's too late at that point. He ended up with 2 consecutive life sentences and is currently at Red Onion spending the rest of his life in prison. So,
in the case of Taylor's continued silence, anger and mystery linger over what transpired in Alexis's final moments captured on video.
One of the big mysteries of this case is why we see Alexis Murphy's car following Randy Taylor's. We have no idea why she followed him. Somehow he gets this beautiful, talented young girl to follow him to his trashy dump of a camper. I still can't even wrap my mind around it.
Billy Mays believes the footage tells the story of a drug deal gone bad.
I think Randy had some conversation with her in the parking lot prior to coming into the store about some marijuana that he had. So I really, truly think that she followed Randy back to his camper in the thought of purchasing marijuana.
I find it impossible to believe that she would have voluntarily gone anywhere with Randy Taylor. Alexis didn't have to go with Randy Taylor if she really wanted weed. So it leaves me with the $1 million question: how did you get her there?
Despite Taylor's conviction, he refuses to reveal the location of Alexis's remains.
I can't go put flowers on my niece's grave. I can't take little pink trinkets, which was her favorite color, to put at her grave. So I will continue to look for her until I'm either not here or she's found.
Whether or not Alexis's body is ever found, her family and community will never forget her.
I still think about Alexis all the time. Her face is on my refrigerator. I have a t-shirt with her face on it. My daughter, who I now have, will know about Alexis. There was such a bright future ahead for this young lady.
I grieve the what ifs the most, you know. Where would she have gone to college? What would she have majored in? Would she have met the love of her life, you know, in school? Would she be married? Would she have kids?
It's still unreal because it's like, how can this happen to her? You kind of sit back there and wonder, what if she stayed home that day? What if? It's always that question of what if.
And they'll always remember their final moments with Alexis.
I remember we had went to the Chinese place to get dinner, and I took her to McDonald's to get a frappe. It's one of the things that I always think about, especially when it comes up the anniversary date of her going missing.
The last time I saw Alexis was the weekend before she was abducted. I mean, the normal moments are the ones that are really important. Family gatherings and parties and celebrations and regular moments.